going on, everyone? It's Bales, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy video on the channel. Today it's Wednesday, which means it is Trade Talk Wednesday ahead of round 14. Yeah, two tough buys to come. So we've had the two easier buys now. So now we've got round 14 and 15, which some coaches may struggle to field 18. So trade's going to be very important over the next 2 weeks. So you're going to have to keep both those weeks in mind, plus also making sure that you're continually upgrading your side. So let's get stuck into the most traded in and out players of the week, and then I'll go through my top 5 options for the week and then my trades. So coming in number 1 for the week is Angus Sheldrick. At the moment, 14.9 thousand coaches are bringing him in. I would just sort of be wary that he may not be there because potentially Callum Mills is back this week, if not next week. And then also Luke Parker is going to be back this week. So hopefully Sheldrick can hold his spot and be an option for us. But we have to see if he does get named. But if he does get named, I think he will be the most trading player of the week, which obviously, as it stands, he is at the moment. Jack Sinclair, 7.7k coats are jumping on him, on one of those coats that may be looking at jumping on him this week. Scored 107 last week in a pretty tough matchup against Sydney where he copped that Ryan Clark tag. But I think he just... We normally say that when you bring in players off their bye, not to really take too much into account what they've done first half of the year, because they can quite easily do a lot better or a lot worse back half of the year. But I think Sinclair's going to be one of the players that does well. I could see him averaging close to that 100, 105 mark back in the year. So he's averaging 97 to date. I think he's a great option. I think Cal was staying on the podcast, our fantasy podcast with the boys, that Sinclair's actually got has only got the one red matchup on the scale of hardness, which is Geelong in round 23. So every other game besides that is looking good. So he's got a great run, as you can see here. I think he's a great buy this week. 834k. It's not too expensive. He's priced pretty fairly. I think he's priced around that 96, 97 mark anyway. So he's priced at what he is. But I think he can actually go better than what he's been averaging. So I think he's a great option, especially after watching what he did last week. Josh Fahey, 5.2k coaches jumping on him. 2 reasons I'm not as keen on him. So one is the fact that GWS are getting a few players back. Josh Kelly could be back this week. Isaac Cumming, Jacob Ware. There's a few other... I think there's a couple of other names off the top of my head I can't think of. But there's a few guys that either be back this week or post-bye. The fact they've got their bye next week, I'm not as keen to jump on him as other rookies. So still got to break him to 30. Still basement price. I think you can watch him this week. And if he's named in round 16, he's the perfect downgrade in round 16. So if you haven't jumped on him already, I don't think there's much point jumping on him now. I think he's a post-buy downgrade option. Lockie Neal, 4.9k coaches jumping on him. Again, I'm still hesitant to jump on Neal. I know he did well last week. He had a career high in marks and they lost. And I know Selby's talked about the fact that I don't really think Fagan wants Lockie Neal taking 14 marks every week. He's going to be better than what he did in the first study. I still see him being a guy that's going to average about that 105 mark, 102 to 105 mark. I don't see him being 110 or a top 8 mid. He's got a great run, but I think this week I could see him copping a row bottom tag. So I'm not as keen to jump on him. I could see him being tagged in a lot of these matchups. And again, the tags have probably been overblown, but I do think he will cop attention this week from row bottom or even a Ryan Clark. So for me, I'm not as keen. 852, I'd rather a Jack Sinclair. I'd even rather a couple of other guys, which we'll get to, over a Neal, just either due to not being tagged, or I think that they're maybe top in there or one of the tops in their line. So I'm not as keen, but if you are, I still don't mind him. But I wouldn't be... Well, no, I've just contradicted myself. No, I'm not the biggest fan of jumping on Neal, but if you want to jump on Neal, then feel free. That's probably what I'm trying to say. Matthew Johnson, 3,500 coaches jumping on him now. Is it too late? That's the question. Is it too late? He's up at 406k, break even of 393 last week. I don't think it's too late. I think it's probably the final week to jump on. It's a lot more than probably what I'd want to pay for him, but the fact that he's got such a low break even. I think he is in their best 22. He's probably a 2-3 week play where you can make about 100 or so K and you can move him on post-buy. Or then again, if he's your final rookie on foot, I guess it's not the worst. But I don't think it's too late. If you can do the other moves as well as bringing in Johnson, do that. But if you have to get a Sheldrick to get maybe a Sinclair, then maybe you're going to have to settle for the cheaper rookie if it's Sheldrick or if it's like a Sturt or something like that. I would maybe prefer to do that to get the better upgrade, but it just depends. I think it's very team dependent, but hopefully you've jumped on him already. Tom Stewart, 3.4k coaches jumping off him. Yep, I'm a big fan of jumping on Tom Stewart. A lot of these GMHBA games are coming up in the back half of the year. So, for example, he's got 3 of his next 5, and then look at this stretch from round 17 to 21. He only plays 1 game away from GMHBA Stadium, which is crazy. And they're pretty good matchups as well, besides that Port one in round 21. But Freo, Essendon, North Melbourne are pretty good there. He's got the Melbourne matchup there as well. I think he's a great target to be looking at. So, yeah, take away that 14 that he got injured on early in the year. I think he's actually doing pretty well. I don't actually know what I think his average would be. I think I worked it out. I think it's about 99 or 98 if you take out that injured game. So that puts him as a top 6 defender, and I think he will be in and around the mark, the top 6. So I do like him. Maybe probably the popular question this week is Sinclair or Stewart. That's a tough one to answer because I think they're both going to be top 6. I think I just lean Tom Stewart. And I think the thing that's tie-breaking it is the fact that, one, Stewart's 17k cheaper. You never know, that 17k might come in handy next week and maybe a future upgrade. And just probably the other thing is maybe Sinclair's probably more of a target than what Stewart is. So I think they're both capable of being tagged by any team, but I think Stewart less likely than Sinclair, if that's what I'm trying to say. And also the fact that Stewart's got all these GMHBA Stadium games on the run home, that's probably why. But I think both are great targets. So if you can get both into your side, I think that is also a good play. Brad Crouch, who I'm a fan of, 2.4k coaches jumping on him. Back-to-back good scores of 114 and 123, I believe. Is that 114? Yep. So he's been obviously great last couple of weeks. He was good to start the year. He had this patch from round 6 to round 10, which I don't quite know what happened. Like, Jack Steele came back around here, but he was scoring well with Jack Steele in the side in this patch anyway. So I don't know what that was about, but I do like him to target. He's got some easy matchups to come. 825k, sort of lowish break even. We know that he can go on a stretch averaging 110 to 115. So I'm a big fan of him. I personally prefer Crouch over Neil. I think 24k cheaper. I think Crouch can average more than Neil from here. So I would prefer to jump on Brad Crouch over Lachie Neale for me. Caleb Sarong, if you didn't jump on him last week, I still think he's a good target. Still averaging that 109.7, so 110. 113 last week. Looked good. There was sort of a talk of an ankle injury in the week, but certainly didn't see any limitations there. So if you can afford him, I think he's a great target. I think he'll be in and around those top 8 midfielders. So I do like him. Ryan Marrick, 2k coach, are jumping on him. I wouldn't be jumping on him this week. I'd be bringing him in next week. I think he's a great target next week, so I think he'll be playing. The only reason I could see maybe bringing Ryan Marrick in is if Sheldrick's dropped. Obviously, Mullen's not there, so that's obviously a shame. I was looking at bringing Mullen in, and coach were relying on him. And then if you can't afford maybe a Windhager, and then where is he? You can't afford a Dev Robertson. Have I gone past him? No, okay. No, he's not on here. I was looking for Sam Sturt, which I don't actually see him here, so he might not be brought in by... Oh, there he is. 238 coach are bringing him in. So if he's not named, and then your Sheldrick's not named, it's pretty much like who you're going to go to. So probably Ryan Marrick would be the guy you get in because at least you're more certain he's probably going to play next week. I don't see them dropping him after him kicking a couple of goals and looking pretty good. So I think he's pretty safe to play next week. So I'd be fine to jump on him if these other rookies don't get named. But if a Sheldrick gets named, you jump on him. If a Sam Sturt gets named, you jump on. I'd also rather probably jump on a Windhager, who's 130k more. But then knowing he's going to play, he's got the flexibility mid-forward status, and then you can maybe get Marrick next week. So it just depends, because I've already got Windhager. If Sheldrick and that don't get named, I might have to look at a Marrick bringing him in. But Nat Fife, 1.8k coaches are jumping on him. I'm a bit torn with Fife. So I do like as an option. He scored 83 last week. He's only 448. Is that right? 449. So he's cheap. Break-even's back down to 44 after his 83 last week, so he went up 4K. I think he'll start to make a bit of money. I don't see him being an 85, 90 guy. I see him more being anywhere from a 70 to an 85 at best case scenario. Obviously, the injury risk is there. He's cheap. I'm a fan if you're moving a peddler or someone like that to him, that you can almost play Fife as an M9 or an F7 poster buys, if that even means you're playing a Humphrey on field, because then at least you can loop him on and see what happens. And that's sort of the position I'm in. That's why I'm considering him. But it's not going to be for everyone, and I don't think you have to force a move to get Fife in. I don't think he's a must-have. I think he's a good target because he's cheap. But yeah, it just depends what you can do. But at the moment, I am a fan, but I think it's very team dependent. So, yep, Nasai Wangini Miller, 1.5k coaster, jumping on him. Again, if he's the best you can get to, I don't mind at 752. There's not a lot of players around that price coming off their buy that maybe coaches are keen on. He's been good of late. Look at this. So from the run from round 7 onwards, 101, 125, 53, 107, 81, 118. That only poor scores when they got smashed by the Crows. They got a good run. He's obviously got a ceiling, as we can see. He's cheap, lowish break even. I don't mind the sort of plug and play for a couple of weeks to see how he goes, but I would still prefer, if you can get up to a Stewart or a Sinclair, I'd much prefer going up to one of those guys. There is a bit of an argument there. Could you go a Wangini Miller over a Young or a Luke Ryan? And you probably could, because he's 50-odd K cheaper and got some good matchups. So I don't mind it. Josh Dunkley, if you don't have him, 1.3k coaches jumping on him. If you don't have him, you just jump on him. I didn't actually realise that he's down at 67.9%, which I know that he was 68.5%. He was owned by more. He was owned by like 73%. So a few people have jumped off recently. Maybe that was the buy. Maybe that was before he went on his run. But if you haven't got him, you got to jump on. I think he's a must-have. He's going to be a top 2 forward. I think him and Taranto are the 2 top forwards. Maybe Butters is there, which I didn't think I'd be saying. Butters would be up and around the top couple, and obviously Gordon's there as well. But Dunkley's going to be a top 6, so you need him in your side. And if you can get up to him, I would be doing that. Andrew Brayshaw, very similar to Dunkley. 1.2k jumping on him. Again, if you can get to him, I think you should, because he's going to be a top 8 midfielder. He only scored 100 last week. I think the conditions had a bit more to do with that, and I think he'll go very well for the back half of the year. Zach Butters, 1.2k coach jumping on him. If you don't care about buys, then feel free. He's obviously been great, but I would prefer to be targeting your round 12 and 13 players over him, because Butters got the bye next week. You much prefer to wait until round 16 to be bringing in a guy like Butters, and he's expensive as well. He's up at 946, break even 97. So I'd prefer to wait, but if you don't care about buys and you want to get Butters, then feel free. Windhager, as I was saying before, Marcus Windhager, 1.2k jumping on him. I don't mind jumping on him. 66 last week. Looked decent as well, played in the midfield. I think he's in their best 22, personally. So I don't mind jumping on him with the mid-forward flexibility. You're paying a little bit more, but during buys, we want as many green dots as possible. And if getting Windhager is ensuring you're getting a green dot, I prefer that than getting maybe a Sheldrick or something like that. If you can get to him, just because we just don't know about Sheldrick's job security. Like, there's a chance that he's not there next week. Because if Mills isn't back this week, he's back next week. And Parker will also be back. And I think Sheldrick would be the one to make way. So I'd prefer to part for Windhager to get that extra green dot. Jack McRae, 1.1k coach jumping on him again. Very similar to Brayshaw, Butters. I'd prefer to wait till post-buy, but again, if you don't care about buys, jump on, because he will be, I think, a top 6 forward. He's looked very good of late. Like we've said, he's been frustrating for the year, but he is a forward averaging 100. Not many forwards are averaging that. His last 4 weeks have been great. I don't think his CBA numbers have been too high either, so if all of a sudden he starts getting CBAs, then he's going to be a lot more than 100. So I do like him as an option, but not to bring in if you care about your buys, because you can just get him after his buy in round 16. Same with Caleb Daniel as well. You can watch him for another week and see how he goes and target him post-buy, but a few coaches jumping on him. And George Warder as well, some coaches are jumping on him. I think it's too late, personally. 450k. He's got the buy next week. I wouldn't be jumping on him now. 450k. It's sort of, he's edging towards that sort of that mid-pricer territory where you can get up to it. Even a Himmelberg is like, not even 100k. He might even be 100k cheaper than him, actually. What is Himmelberg? Yeah, literally 95k more expensive. So I'd prefer to jump on a guy like him, who we know can put up some decent numbers. So they're the most traded in players. The most traded out players. So Jacob Van Rooyen, 6.2k coaches jumping off. Yep, I ticked that off. Obviously, he's made his money. Got the buy this week. Perfect time to move him on. Will Day, 4.4k jumping off. So Will Day, I think it depends on your team. If you're nearing your completion of your team, I think it could be a time where he could go if you can get. But I wouldn't be going him to down. I wouldn't be going him down to a Fife or down to another option. Or I wouldn't even be going him to Wangani Miller. You'd have to be going Will Day up to a Sinclair or Stewart. They're probably the two names I tick off. I wouldn't do it for a Young or a Ryan because I think that there's not much between them. Yeah, I think they're the only two names I'd tick off. So I wouldn't trade Will Day unless you're doing something like that. But I think he can go if it works for your team, but it would only be for Sinclair or Stewart. Noah Long, 4.2k coach jumping off. Yep, he's got his buy. You can trade him out. Seamus Mitchell, same thing, 3.8k jumping off him. Sicily, I think it just depends how many weeks he gets suspended for. I'm recording this on Tuesday evening, so I'm just seeing. So they're still deliberating actually while I'm recording, so they haven't actually decided yet. But if he's missing a week, you could hold because he's only going to miss the buy and then round 15, then round 16 bring him in. But if he's missing 2 or more weeks, he's going to be missing 3, so I'd be trading at that point. But I think it is a trade. I don't see how he doesn't get less than 3, but just because he's been referred to the tribunal, and that normally means that they get 3 or more, but we'll just have to see. James Warple, 3.6k coach jumping off. Yep, tick that off. You can jump off him and try and move him up to a premium, like a Brayshaw or someone in your midfield would be a very good move there, or even a Brad Crouch. I would tick off a Lockie Neal as well. If you can go Warple to a Neal or a Crouch, I'd do that. I prefer Crouch personally, but if you can go to one of those guys, I'll also tick that off. Jaden Hunt, same thing, 3.3k jumping off. I don't mind going him to Wangani Miller. That's a play, but again, I'd still prefer your Sinclair and your Stewart. But yeah, Hunt can go. Luke Pedler, 2.1k coaches jumping off. Same thing can go. Alex Chincotta, nearly 2k coach jumping off. I think you can go a week early. Even if he's named this week, you could probably get away with holding him for one more week. Break him to 54. You never know. He could contribute a good score and be good for you. But I'm not too fussed about moving on him this week if you've got enough numbers because you're going to have to probably move off him next week anyway. Ruben Jinby, yep, he's time to go. Nearly 2k coach jumping off him. Will Ashcroft, 1.8k coaches. I'd still prefer to hold Ashcroft. I think if you've held him this long, I think you hold him through the buys and he can go at round 16. But hey, maybe some teams are in really good positions and you can move on a guy like Ashcroft and still have your 20, and which in that case could be a move. I'd still probably hold for 2 more weeks and then move him post-buy. I don't see him going down a lot. Break even 99. Again, if you post a 60 or something like that, then maybe he might go down a bit, but I'd still keep. Alwyn Davey Jr., yep, I'd be happy moving him off. What's his price actually? Is it so exactly 300? Yeah, so you can still make yourself 90 odd K going down to a Sheldrick. I think it's 87 actually. But yeah, I'd still be happy to move him on. Ben Hobbs is interesting. 1.7k jumping off. This one's I still think I'd move him on. I think I'd take the scores and take the cash in and move on. So he's made probably for a lot of coaches about 150k, and for some might have been even more if they jumped on him earlier. With Parish set to come back next week when they're off their bye, Setterfield's are still a couple of weeks away. You probably could move off and, as I said, take the scores, but I don't mind holding. So Freo Port Crows after the bye. Obviously, Port's a tougher matchup. He can score. We know he's a scorer. It just depends. I think if you can get him up to someone, I'd be happy to move off. But he's essentially the same price as Ben Keys. So I'd rather Ben Keys in my team long term. But I'm not saying I'd move Hobbs to Keys this week because obviously they're both on the bye. But yeah, I'd be happy to move on Hobbs if it works. But also, it's also a guy that if you've got rookies to move on first, I'd probably rather move them on. So I'd rather move on your Jinbys, your Pedlers, your Noah Longs, your Van Rooyens, your Mitchells, your Weddells, guys like that. I'd rather move on. But if you can get Hobbs up to someone good like a Brayshaw or something like that, I'd be doing that. Miller Bergman got the bye next week, but put up at 10 last week. So his break-even's up at 61. He's 390k. I'd be happy to move off him a week early. And 390k, I didn't actually realize he's actually up at that price. So he's done pretty good to get up to that price. John McVie, yep, he can go. Harry Sharp's a red dot unless he comes back in this week. But yeah, he can go. Campbell Chesser, I wouldn't be trading. 1.4k jumping off him. Still got a low break, even at 15. Depends if he's in the side round 15 or not. I'm not sure if he will. But But even so, I'd still be keeping him. I just don't think there's much point. He's only 283k. You're only making yourself 70k going with Sheldrick, and Sheldrick could be dropped next week or this week, and then Chesser could be named. So I wouldn't be trading Chesser personally. Drury 1.4k jumping off. I still feel like it's a bit of a waste trading him. 234k. I'm sure you've probably got other red dots that are worth more, or players that made more money that are on buy that you could move on instead. If you're really, really struggling for round 15 and you need the rookies on buy this week to play next week, then maybe you could move Drury. But I just think it's a bit of a waste of a trade moving a guy like Drury on now. I think the time to move him on was round 12 or round 11. I think the time's gone. He's only 234. You make yourself maybe not even 20k going down to a rookie that may even be dropped next week. Who's to say that Drury won't play this week and then Sheldrick gets dropped or something like that? So I wouldn't move off. I think it's a bit of a waste. Harry Sheasel, 1.4k coach is jumping off. Again, he scored well last week, but I'll be happy to move off. We know that rookies like this do tend to slow down in the back half of the year. I don't think she's going to slow down dramatically. I still see him averaging at least 85 in the back bit of the year. But he is at a good price of 756. He did drop 16k this week, but he's a good price that you can move him on. Go keep to a Sinclair or a Stewart. It's not going to cost you very much, or maybe 60 odd k for Stewart. I think it's 61k for Stewart, and then it's 74k to go to Sinclair. I'd still rather do that. You could do it next week, but if you're heavy round 15, I don't mind moving off early. Ryan Angwin can go as well. There's also a possibility he's maybe not even there. I was talking about Faye not being there, but there's also a chance Angwin may not be there. Rochelle can go. Nick Dacos would not be trading. 1.2k coach is jumping off him. I know that's just people just sidewaysing premiums. Again, if it was 960, then maybe you could. No, I still wouldn't even do it at that point, because then if he does keep going at 110s, then how are you going to get back up to him really? So I would not be moving off Dacos at all. Dom Sheed, I'm fine to move off of. Josh Weddle, also fine to move off. Samson Ryan, also happy to move off as well. But yeah, so nearly 1,000 coach jumping off. Merritt, Atkins, a few people jumping off, but see if he's named. Dawson, a few people are trading out. Walsh, I know Roy was talking about trading Walsh. I probably don't know if I would. He's 863. Like, you're not really... If he was 950 and you put up a couple of bad scores, then maybe you could consider moving off. But 863 is just not value. Or enough value to be moving him on. So I wouldn't. I'd be holding. Unless you're absolutely heavy and he's your worst primo on that buy, then you could. But he's still averaging 104. He's still averaging 104.6, and I still think he will be a top 8 midfielder. And he's going to be a brilliant price post buy to bring in, and I think he'll probably be my final upgrade from a rookie. He'll be close to maybe 820. So yeah, I don't mind bringing him post buy, but I don't know if I'll be trading. Just seeing if there's any names. How dare 608 people trade out Rory Laird? That is an absolute insult. But yeah, Petrarca, like people trading Petrarca, like Tom Green, guys like that. I wouldn't be trading off premiums. We just, obviously the smart thing is to not sideways premiums. But obviously some people do some different things. All right, so my top 5 targets for the week ahead of round 14, as is the case in most years during the buys, it is team dependent in terms of who you're bringing in. So I'll try my best. Hopefully you guys don't have some of these options if you do listen to my advice and you want to bring these players in. But at number 1, I've got Tom Stewart sitting at number 1. So it's tough to split between him and Sinclair, but I just think Tom Stewart, slight bit cheaper. I think they're averaging very similar if you take out Tom Stewart's injured 14. Run home, he's got a lot of games down at GMHBA Stadium, got a pretty nice run as well to finish the year. So for me, Tom Stewart just edges out Jack Sinclair, who is my number 2 option for the week. Last week was midfielders, so people bringing in your Brayshaw, Sarong, Lockie Neal, Brad Crouch. But this week it's defenders, I think, with the likes of like your Will Days and your Jayden Hunts, guys like that coaches are looking to move on, your Weddles, Seamus Mitchells, like your rookies. So I think coaches are looking to bring in defenders, so that's why I've got these 2. Sinclair got a great run home, as mentioned before, only that one red matchup in Geelong in round 23, so I would be looking at him with a nice run. But then after that, it does get quite tough. So those 2, I think Brayshaw for me is still number 3. I know he's expensive, and if you didn't jump on him last week, I'd still be happy to jump on. I think he'd be a top 8 midfielder. Obviously struggled in the first part of the year with that knee injury, but still averaging 110. If he's fit, I can see him going 115 for the rest of the year. So for me, he would be sitting at number 3. I'm not going to include Dunkley because he is owned by like essentially 70-odd% of the comp. But if you don't have Dunkley, he'd obviously be one of the top few I'd be recommending. So at number 4, this is where it's a bit tougher. I'd probably say Brad Crouch at number 4 for me. I do like the value of him there. Back-to-back good scores of 114 and 123. Got a good run as well, obviously mentioned with Sinclair. And same can be said for Crouch. I think he's got a good run as well. So I think Crouch will be my number 4. He can average 110 for a sustained period. We know that. Just because he averaged 101 with that poor stretch in the first half of the year, who's to say he's not going to average 110 for the rest of the year? So I do like Brad Crouch as an option on the way home. So he'd be number 4. And number 5, who'd be number 5? It's tough because it could be shared between a few players. It could be, is it a Windhager, who's probably got the better job security as a rookie, but he's a little bit more expensive, but he does have that mid-forward flexibility. So if you can make him work, he's probably my number 5 if he works for your side. But he's not going to work for everyone. Lockie Neal could probably slip in there at number 5, and he probably would, but I'm just a bit nervous with a potential tag this week and maybe tags in the future. But if you're not concerned with that, you could go him. It could be Sarong. Actually, it probably would be Sarong, actually, thinking about it now. If you can afford Sarong, I think Sarong would be my number 5. I do like him as an option. He's already had his bye, averaging 110. I think he's a little bit closer to 105, but I still think you average about that 107 mark, which I think still puts him just outside the top 8. If not, it may put him inside the top 8 with a few guys not averaging over 110. So I do like Sarong as an option, but Lockie Neal's there as well. He's a bit cheaper. If Sheldrick gets named, he's obviously a great option as well. Fife, if he fits in your team, isn't a bad option with good value. So they're probably the ones, but it's probably the top 4 that I'm pretty confident in. And number 5, there's a few options that sort of you can consider. So they're my top 5 targets for the week. My trades that I'm doing this week. So I'm bringing in, I'm going Weddle all the way down to Sam Sturt at this stage, just because I'm assuming Sheldrick won't be there. But if Sheldrick gets named, I'll be going Sheldrick over Sturt. I think just would save a little bit more cash, lower break even. So I'll be going him. But we'll be going him down to someone. If both don't get named, it probably will be a Ryan Marrick. I may have to go early on him because I've got a Windhager. So that may be what I'm doing. I'll then be going Luke Pedler over to Nat Fife. Just because there's not like a heap of downgrade options. Actually, Devon Robertson could be an option that I might consider as well over Ryan Marrick. I might get Devon Robertson if he's named as well. So one of those 3 will be coming in. Then it'll be Pedler across to Fife. I just think Pedler's on my bench. It works for my team. At worst, Fife's going to be F7 or M9. So I just think that, I'm happy to do it anyway. But it could be another rookie. But I'm not sure. At this stage, it will be Fife. And then my upgrade will be Dylan Williams will be going all the way up to Jack Sinclair. I've already got Tom Stewart. So for me, it's Jack Sinclair. I need a defender as well. So I did look at Brad Crouch over a Jack Sinclair. But I need a defender. So Jack Sinclair is the guy. Plus, I'm a big fan of bringing him into my side this week. So they're my trades. And that's it for the Wednesday Trade Talk. So let me know in the comments below what you guys are doing, your trades this week. Or if you've got questions regarding trades, put them in the comment section below and I'll answer them whenever I get to them. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like as always. Put the thumbs up there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. I believe we're on 1154, so we're 46 away from 1200. So if we're going to reach that goal, that would be very much appreciated. Turn notifications on so you don't miss when I go live or upload any other content in the future. I'll be back on Friday for the Twitter space with Tim. Potential watch along on Thursday or Friday night. I'll let people know if I'm going live on either of those nights, but definitely be going live Saturday for the St Kilda and Richmond games, so make sure you tune into that as well. All my social media links as well in the description below, so follow me across all those to keep up to date when I'm uploading content or going live or anything like that. So, or if you hit me up with questions there. So until Friday afternoon or evening, or potentially Thursday night, I'll catch you guys in the next video. So I'm out. Cheers.